Grand Rising loves. Happy Wednesday. Wednesday is ruled by Mercury, and Mercury is the planet of perception. And so, being the planet of perception, this is how we see things. And we only perceive things at the level of our own consciousness. And so a lot of times the mistake we make is believing that others feel as deeply as we do or perceive as greatly as we do. And so just be very aware of that today, that your perception is unique to you, just as your path and purpose is unique to you. So happy Wednesday. And so this is the altar spread for the collective consciousness today. The collective consciousness is everyone. And if it resonates with you, then it is for you. If it does not, then it is not. But this is for the greatest percentage of the collective. And so hopefully this speaks to you and will inspire you to make those minute adjustments to move more effortlessly into your human experience. And so the sacred geometry that showed up for today, and this actually showed up the other day. So it's interesting when a deck of 74 cards has repeat appearances. Because like I said, I pull from myself, I put it back in the deck, and then I pull for the collective. And because it makes a difference for these cards to show up in the reverse, I literally mush them all together and around, holding them in the air and dropping them into a big messy pile, and then I shuffle them. So this is how this shows up. And so it's definitely hand selected by the universe for the collective for it to show up again within a week's period. So the dodecahedron showed up in reverse again, and so last time it was also in the reverse. Now this is one of the platonic solids, and a platonic solid has equal sides, equal angles, and it is considered one of the cosmic volumes. What does that mean? It actually holds a very specific wisdom. And so if you have all of these platonic solids, it's like a library, okay? And so it holds that it's one of the cosmic volumes. This is a volume, like an encyclopedia with very specific divine wisdom. And so the dodecahedron, if you meditate with this, it holds the fecundity of divinity. So that's like the space where divinity meets matter. It's that creation. And so this is what translates divinity into matter. And so when it shows up in the reverse, and isn't that beautiful? This is a quartz dodecahedron. Isn't that beautiful? You can get lost in those shapes, but it's very powerful to meditate with. So showing up in the reverse, it talks about clinging to old form, that you are actually not moving into that creativity to translate the divinity into matter. You're getting stuck. And so when we are stuck in old form, it's because either we fear the power of what's to be, or we can feel the impending buckling of the dam and purification that has to happen. So you hold on because you think it's going to be easier to hold on to old form. It is not. It is not. So become like the sun. The sun does not mourn the sunrise in its full midday glory, nor does it dread the dusk. It just shines as it is meant to. So completely embody your divine being And when you answer the call of synchronicity, because remember, synchronicity is like the breadcrumbs of divine leading you on your path and purpose, always recalibrating you and realigning you. And so when you are clinging to old form, you become misaligned. It is literally impossible to regress. And I tell people that all the time. They're like, I think I'm going backwards. No, it's literally impossible. It is possible to plateau, to pause, but it is not possible to regress because everything is a forward motion. Everything evolves. And so there are moments of slowing in the process. And so it can feel that way. And especially when the universe tests your commitment, it'll send you the same old lessons again. And you're like, man, I thought I graduated this. Why is this showing up again? I must have effed up really bad somewhere, right? But no, you didn't fuck up. And this is the revisiting of that energy to say, you sure? Are you real sure? But you are constantly in that forward motion. So don't ever feel like you've regressed. So dodecahedron in reverse is saying, just let it go. And don't be afraid of hurting someone else or not making the right choice or worrying about the judgment, because there are no others. Everyone is you. And so when you really start aligning with that truth and let go of the idea of separateness, everything is for the highest good. Nothing is happening to you, it's for you, always for you. And completion showed up also in the reverse. And completion talks, remember, this is the message that came up yesterday. You have reached a space of completion. You have graduated. You've got this lesson. Now let it go. Don't be dragging around the old skins. Let yourself feel the newness of stepping into this higher level. Right? You've leveled up. It's like playing a video game. Like, woo, good. You got extra lives. You've leveled up. Now step into it. You're not looking back saying, well, that level, I think I've got it mastered. Let me stay here for a bit. No, this is a whole idea of the human experience, to constantly be refining us so that we can eventually return to unity consciousness and transcend these old biological suits. Because what we really want is to return to the bliss of being spirit and divine. This is a real heavy experience, but it does refine us. So completion in the reverse talks about letting it go. You're in an expired experience. Let it go. So both of these actually echo the same sentiment. Let it go. Let it go so that you can create what is actually meant for you to create. And so the tool in that is the self-knowledge. Lapis lazuli is going to help you with that. So lapis, this is a raw piece of lapis. Isn't that beautiful? Now, lapis has really become the new bloodstone. It's really been over-harvested and slave labor, really, to harvest lapis. It's kind of sad. So really be careful who you're getting your lapis from. Make sure that they're getting it from sustainable sources, humane employment. Because it's not okay how some of the people are treated to get that. But self-knowledge, when you are really aligned with your highest self, it's no longer a practice to hold others captive to old paradigm beliefs that there is separateness, where you start to have a fear and searching for validation outside of yourself and trying to align with with the ego, really. So self-knowledge actually heals that. It's hilarious because not hilarious, really, it's kind of sad, but when I see other spiritual pages talking about you need to love your ego, and if you don't love your ego, that's actually self-loathing. And I'm like, whoa, you got a long ways to go. But it's okay. I just realize, like, this is my last life. And I have never met anyone who can have those conversations with me. And so it's okay. But know that you're hearing me say things that others won't say because they're just not at that realization. But the ego is actually an impediment. It's a disease. It's the programming. And it's like saying, I've got cancer and I love it because it's part of me. No, cancer is not part of you. It's a disease. And it's there because of the spiritual disconnect, and you're holding rage in your body. And so in order to heal that thing, you must really love yourself. So it's not, the ego is not part of you. It doesn't need to be loved and integrated. The spirit is you. And everything outside of that is manifest in you not fully embodying the spirit. And I've gotten that validation from having, years and years and years of working in medicine. And that is my pest control. I'm going to pause for a moment. I'm sorry, I'm stepping away. Let me let them in. Actually, it's a surprise visit from my beautiful friend Stephanie. So anyhow, the self-knowledge is about knowing that you are a divine being, and that's absent of ego. Ego is the programming. Ego is what tells you that you are either better than or less than. It also finds a need to defend itself. It is an impediment. There is no good use for ego. And I think when people say things like that, I think it's because they are confusing ego with intellect. I think they are confusing the two. Intellect is a tool of the human experience that we are birthed with, just like the biological suit that holds our spirit. And the intellect was meant to be clear, so that we could funnel that divine wisdom that is our birthright. Now, that is what marries our creative self with divine self, so that our expression, our self-expression, is 100% authentically us. Ego is the programming of someone else into our intellect. So when you identify with the ego, you are actually being someone else's version of yourself. You are actually not being your authentic divine self through the intellect. It is an impediment. Please understand that. So when you see those spiritual teachers talking about if you don't integrate and love your ego, you're actually not loving you, bullshit. And have them contact me. I would love to have this conversation with them. And maybe save them a couple incarnations to have them learn that this lifetime. Anyhow, because that's my path and purpose. So the culmination of today's spread is Hoponopono, the immeasurable power of the heart way. When we are connecting with our authentic self, it is not in the mind, it is through the heart. So self-knowledge will take you into this space. And The ancient practice of Hoponopono, which I happen to be a practitioner, is about being 100% responsible for everything that shows up in your reality. And so what happens is that this experience shows up. You created it. You are responsible for it. Is it aligned or is it not? If it is not, then it needs to be taken back to the zero state, to that fecundity. So dodecahedron in the upright, and take it back to that space before it even crystallized as a thought to be created. And that comes from a clear intellect, by the way. The ego cannot do that. If you create from the ego, that is the corruption of the human experience, and that is what created the hierarchy. That is what created the big fucking mess that we are experiencing right now. Period. So Hoponopono, this is the practice that I do at the end of every day's video. It is so simple that it is mind-blowing, but it really is that simple. But the reason why it is so difficult is because of those who try to practice it are trying to practice it from the ego and not their heart. We are one. We are one. As unique as we are a fraction of a whole, even though we are wholly complete on our own. So when something shows up, even if it's murder and rape and pillage, we have to be responsible for it, because on some level of creation, we have created it. I have created it. So when it shows up, I love it. I have to give it love in order to reabsorb that into creation. Because on some level, it was corrupted to be created. And I say, I love you. I'm sorry. I'm sorry. Please forgive me. And fucking mean it. I'm sorry. Please forgive me. And thank you for the opportunity, for showing up and giving me the chance to make it right. That is the remorse, the repentance, the gratitude, and love. That is the way to return to unity consciousness. I love you. I love you. I love you.